Our unpredictable countdown. That's what I'm getting at. Wait, hold on. And now we're in it.
You remembered.
How smooth is that getting? I feel good about it.
Very proud. You should feel very proud.
I am. I'm a proud papa of this. Brought to you by StreamYard. Hey, bringing podcasting and vlogging and live YouTube videos into the 21st century. StreamYard.
It's come a long way since I first started listening.
Sure has. Well, yeah, because I'm in Shadyside and Jack's at home, and it used to be just right where you just came from. So yeah, physically has come a long way, and production value has come a long way. So, well, yeah, to anyone listening and watching, we have Ed Murphy. Ed, short for Eduardo.
No O in the end, but you got it right in the first round. Edmond with an O.
I think I knew that. Yeah. Edmund Murphy, temporarily retired. Not between jobs, temporarily retired. Like, yeah, awesome.
What do you use that whiteboard for to your left?
So right now it's actually got some lacrosse field on it because I've been teaching my son like lacrosse positioning and stuff like that. But normally it's kind of notes or like big things I need to do for the week. This is my office.
Oh, you're like Ed Tasso.
Ed Tasso.
Speaking of lacrosse,
I haven't caught up on the latest episode. Don't spoil it for me.
Fun fact number 2 about Ed, including his youth. Ed has competed in 16 different sports. Does that include coaching?
I have not really coached. I've taught classes, but I haven't officially coached a sport.
Huh.
And so I don't know. I just am not good at any sports, so I just bounce between them and try to find the one that's like I'm most good at.
I was about to say, is that a function of your athleticism or your indecisiveness?
Both. Curiosity, I would say.
Oh, look at you.
Is that more like being a CrossFitter where you're kind of good at a bunch of things?
Yeah, that's the best thing about CrossFit. It's like different movement every week.
Yeah. And you don't have to be great at everything. You just have to be kind of good at everything, and you're pretty fit.
Yeah.
It's funny how that worked out. So awesome.
Except for thrusters.
Except thrusters never.
Except for thrusters. Yeah, I feel like that is sort of one of those critical CrossFit components that, like, if you're not good at thrusters, you're probably never going to be that good at CrossFit, like from a competitive standpoint. Like those are that's actually an Austin Malleola thing, where he and Hobart, when they were still training together consistently, they would just do like 2 or 3 different versions of thrusters per week as they were training for like the 12 or 13 or something, one of those time period of the games. And that might have been, I think, when Austin had his best year. But yeah, he'd do like heavy thrusters on Monday, then light, fast, high volume dumbbell thrusters on Wednesday, and then like wall balls and thruster couplets with like double unders in between on like Friday or Saturday or something. So always some sort of squat into a press overhead thruster. Because his theory was, if you're good at thrusters, you're good at CrossFit.
But outside of being able to squat well and press overhead well, like, what makes you good at thrusters?
You can do heavy ones, fast ones, light ones, high volume ones.
So if you can be good
dumbbell ones, barbell ones, sandbag ones.
There's so many thrusters. How can you be good
at right there? That and you if it's who can do the most in a minute. Yeah, you do the most in a minute. Who can do the heaviest one? You do the heaviest one. Who can do that plus other things? You can, and the other person can't. Therefore, by default, you're better than the other person. You're good.
You're gooder than them. Well, Ed, you also have that's a long way for you to go down to that squat. Those long legs. That's long. I know. It's a long way down, a long way up, dude.
I'm mostly just bitter because my really poor thruster strength was like a quarter of my score for the Open.
Yeah.
Fundamentally impacted where I ended up.
You and a lot of other people, my friend. Yeah. It was funny. Have you watched any of Talking Elite Fitness has this Death by new series that they started. It's horrible. I think that's aggressive. I'm confused what the judging and scoring component is, but basically it's Lauren Khalil having 4 or 5 other people on, and then she asks them a series of questions, and then like eliminates one, eliminates another.
Oh, it's like Around the Horn on
Yeah.
ESPN.
Oh, is that what it's based on?
Oh,
Yeah, there's a show on ESPN called Around the Horn, and there's like a host, and there are 4 like sports commentators, and they randomly give them points, and then
That's it. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And then so it was Lauren Khalil, and then Sean Woodland, Chase Ingram, who's the Nikki Brazier, and Tim Paulson were the first ones on, and she eliminated Sean Woodland and Chase Ingram pretty quickly in the first 2. But Chase Ingram made a really good point around you can't claim the programming was effective for a stage if, or maybe it was Woodland, doesn't matter. One of them was that the idea is that you're testing for general fitness. CrossFit is the idea of, most broad across times and modal domains, blah, blah, blah. If in the analysis of your test, there is one thing that seems to be the limiting or delimiting or limiting factor across the entire test, that seems to scream speciality, which seems to suggest your test wasn't as broad as you think it was. And so the handstand push-ups with the wall-facing handstand push-ups, the crossovers, the heavy thruster, like if they, if somebody showed that they had a weakness, like if it was 1 or 2 people, across the top end folks or whatever, and you're like, oh, look, yeah, it identified you had a weakness. But if statistically, like you just said, Ed, like you and 76% of the rest of the field were generally in the same percentage category for every event, except for this one event, that seems to suggest that one thing was noteworthily too specific to test general fitness. If you wanted to test that thing, incorporating it within a couplet or a triplet or a chipper or something, that now it's like in the mix and combined with other movements, well, now you're testing like its impact to general fitness. But if it's isolated and being scored by itself, that's problematic in a test that is testing for general prepared physical readiness. Blah, blah, blah. It was Chase's, or like I said, I can't remember which one said it, but either way, I was like, that was a really good point. And then I think they got eliminated.
So
mine is just, it made up 25% of your score for the Open.
Right. And if that, and it as an outlier was the one that you were distinct. And again, like I would offer though that with a thruster as the 1 rep max test, if you look at the top, so if we're looking at the top 10%, so those in the 90th percentile or better, most of them did well both in 2A and 2B.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So, or they did like really, really well in 2A and well enough in 2B.
Yeah, right? That was my problem. Like I didn't do well enough in 2B.
Yeah. So that suggests that the 1 rep max thruster isn't quite as specialized. Yeah, it's a single modality strength test or whatever, but it kind of it's been around long enough. But anyway, some of the other ones, it's a good point. It's just the idea of like, it's like tricky skills tests. Do they belong in an online
like the crossover?
Yeah, like do they belong? But the thing is, in the crossover, like I'm not sure about that one because it was mixed with the dumbbells and it had other stuff to kind of like, you could pick up pace on the snatches and the lunges if you were bad in the crossovers. Not to mention they're not that hard to get. Like you spend 3 or 4 days on them, which I did. Yeah. The problem with the crossovers is it is equipment specific. You have a different type of rope. You have a distinctly better chance of doing better on them. And so there's like what the fuck? Like like that seems to me problematic with it being a new movement, not specifying like it would make sense. These are the 3 types of ropes that CrossFit recommends using on the equipment list type of thing. Like, right. That's less unknown and unknowable and more kind of like, gotcha.
Yeah. So Ed, where did you finish in your age group?
I was like 63rd percentile.
63rd.
I ended up, I had a rough week too because I was traveling for work.
Right.
And I came back and I was like under the weather, and I only
did you get back like the day before or like that day?
I had to do it on Sunday because I got back
right.
at like midnight on Friday.
Right.
And I did it once, and yeah,
that was enough. That was the shuttle run burpee pull-ups.
Yeah. So the part A of that, like I way underperformed what I thought I was capable of. I could have gotten a little bit heavier on the thruster, but I don't think the week had as much impact on the strength. Strength is probably my biggest.
There, it's not. What'd you hit on the thruster?
156.
156.
And I've hit heavier than that before. I think I've gone all the way up to 170 in like an EMOM.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was happy overall with my open performance. If I could have redone 2A and 2B, then I feel like I would have jumped a little bit.
Those
but everyone can say the same thing.
Yeah, everyone had 1 or 3 that they felt like they could have done better on. But it was fun. So but after that too, I think you remember the first thing you said after the open was you just realized that strength is your big strength. And even on a bad day, 155-pound thruster after that workout is still pretty darn strong. But for where you want to be, you said that you feel like strength is your biggest.
Yeah, strength, and I just got to get. I made it in week 1. I made it to the ring muscle ups with like a minute and a half to spare.
Yeah,
but I couldn't hit one. So like the high end gymnastics is like the next level too, and I still don't have great handstand push-ups. So if I had made it past the 135-pound snatch in the 3rd week, I would have gotten face up against a wall on the handstand push-ups.
Yeah, that was a big jump. Nice. So backtrack a little bit, Ed. How long? You've been with Fairwinds now for, is it 3 years?
I've been through 3 opens, but it's only been like 2 years and 3 months because I started in December of 2020. So I was like 2 months in, I went into open, and then I've been there for 2 years since then.
Yeah. And then you were 2 months in, and then the gym or 3 months in, and then the gym closed.
No, I was after,
later. It was
after everything opened back up. Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, this guy right here is your.
I was the solo person in the 7 a.m. class for like a solid month, which was great. If I could go home and tell my wife, like, nobody else is in this class. It's just me and the coach. I'm not going to get COVID. It's going to be okay.
Until I got COVID. I'm just kidding. I didn't get COVID while we were.
No, Jack's a close talker. Jack's like, all right, when we get to this.
Yeah, that's definitely my MO. I'm definitely a touchy-feely type.
Touchy-feely kind of guy. You always have.
Right.
You like to use your fingers to coach.
Yeah. I like to poke people in weird places. Back of a Volkswagen, whatever.
Too far, Jack. Too far.
It sounds too specific to not be a
That's extra specific, Ed. You're
no,
right.
it's the reference that's Mallrats. Come on, guys.
Throwback.
You got to be born before 1980 to understand that one.
That was a good movie. It's a good movie. Were you doing CrossFit prior to this?
No, not really. I had gone to like a couple of CrossFit classes, but I was primarily doing triathlon prior to CrossFit.
That's right. You got your Ironman tattoo with the
the Celtic knot.
Celtic knot.
Ironman tattoo.
Yeah. Speaking of tattoos, another fun fact about Ed: had his cartilage pierced, but hasn't pulled the trigger on the neck tattoo.
Do you have like a timer set of when you're gonna like pop those up, or is it just all gut instinct?
It's all
You're
gut
just, you're
instinct.
just going on the
100%
fly.
gut instinct.
I mean, I do know I was there. I was backstage, which I love how like StreamYard says that. You know, when you first join in, you are currently backstage.
Right.
But I know that you prepped them beforehand, so just a little behind the curtain for folks.
Yeah.
But still, man, that just cracks me up. Your timing.
That was a good transition.
Yeah,
The
your
tattoo
timing
was-
is impeccable.
I thought about sharing that tattoo as one of my facts, but then I was like, too many people like already know or seen
Already
it.
know.
So
maybe
that one was rough.
did you cry when you got it?
I did not. I got a compliment from the tattoo artist, like, "Man, you're handling this pretty well," because it's on my rib cage. And I was like, "But yeah, keep in mind, I just completed an Ironman triathlon. I can deal with a little bit of pain."
Or the tattoo artist just says that to everybody so that you'll come back for another one.
Yeah,
Right.
I haven't been back for. I got to get another thing worth tattooing. I haven't figured out what that is yet. I'm not ruling out another piece of ink.
Yeah,
You can get an anchor on your forearm. That's a
Okay.
badass.
man.
Or again, the neck.
The neck tattoo.
The neck
I
tattoo.
think like some
I
sort
may
of
be
like
permanently retired if I have a fucking neck tattoo.
you work in
Or
the
just find
industry.
another. I guess not permanently retired. I have to find another line of work.
I was gonna say, but don't you work in like a rock star industry? Like those are like computer programmers, security guys. Like you guys are always a little hardcore, aren't you?
It's true, except I'm not coding anymore. I think if it was coding, it would probably be okay. But I'm more of like out and talking to customers type of role now. So
Well, it's good that you're not coding anymore because I heard those jobs are going to be outsourced to Chat GPT here in a little bit.
Goodness. Backtracking a little bit to your cartilage.
yes,
So is that this part of your ear, like the little?
that was the
at
top.
the
It
top.
was right up here. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then Zach's follow-up question was, "Isn't the whole ear cartilage?"
That's fair.
Yeah,
But I think it's
yeah, but it's very specific. Did you cry when you got that done?
I don't think so. I don't remember. It was freshman year in college. It was a well-advised decision. Roommate and I went and got a cartilage pierce.
Right.
I think it lasted like maybe 6 to 9 months before I got
69 months.
That was
Boom.
virtual high five there, Jack. Oh, that's awesome. So when you rolled into Fairwind, so what about CrossFit tickled you?
a couple
Other than the 7 a.m. coach.
Yeah.
A couple of things. I think one, at that point, it was like, hey, I don't have the time to create my own workouts for myself anymore. I always kind of lifted weights, and I did the typical like box gym type of thing where you go in and you do different muscle group every day of the week, and it just got kind of old and boring, and I did the same thing week over week. So the variety of like both somebody else planning and coming in and telling me what to do, and also knowing that it's going to be different every day, were what attracted me to CrossFit.
Do you remember the first workout you did?
I don't remember the full workout, but it had a 45-pound plate pinch in it. And I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah, those are fiery.
I do the morning that I came in, I came to like this 6:15 class, just kind of like observe and chat with Jack. And I saw like Luis and it was somebody else just like flying up the rope. And I was like, oh no, what am I getting into?
Probably John
And you've been racing Luis ever since.
And yeah, I've been trying to catch up to Luis ever since, except for on the run, on the distance run.
On the distance run.
I still chase him on the sprints.
Yeah, you got that stride on him.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. When I was gonna ask you something about doing CrossFit, 7 a.m.
So I'll ask. So
thank you.
What though you felt personally attacked by our previous episodes concerning scaling and which sorry, hashtag not sorry, but what was it about that conversation that resonated or kind of hit home for you?
So I said, like, I'm at the point with the new Mayhem programming where I can come in and I can look at level 1 and I can be like, yeah, I can do all those movements except for like the high-end gymnastic skills, like we talked about, and the strength numbers aren't quite there. But I come in and I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. And I did it for the first 2 weeks. And I was telling Eric, I think like last week, I was like, Eric, I can't hang from a bar because my shoulders are too tired. It was like a toes to bar. Been doing a lot of toes to bar lately, which is good because it's a weakness. But yeah, I was like, I can't hang from a bar. And it turned out to be like the cumulative fatigue of doing the level 1 over and over and over again. And coming from the triathlon background, like I learned through that my body responds really well to volume and consistency. So it got to me, I was like, okay, if I can do level 1, but I end up every 2 weeks having to like take a week off to like recover, then it's not as good for me if I just like do level 2 every once in a while, work a level 1 in there until like I realize that I'm not fatigued from the level 2 and need to press myself harder. So it's my new approach.
Okay.
And trying to work in some extra time to do like I ended up doing the Mayhem Athlete thing because you get 30% off. So I've got like all those tracks. And I want to start picking like 1 day or 2 days a week to work in extra strength movements to improve, because I think just going to class every week isn't going to make as big of a jump between this year and next open.
Yeah.
That I'd need to see to be able to get that top 10.
Supplement some extra strength work in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I scale to level 2 or like in between level 1 and level 2 consistently, then it also leaves me okay to do a little bit of extra work, as opposed to like trashing myself at level 1 every day and then just coming in beat up over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's now that you're in the hot seat, right, and you kind of have you've put yourself in a position to, we can actually talk about you specifically, not behind your back.
So that was happening before the episode, because I know we had a little bit of before the episode chatter.
I mean, you and Luis may have been, not Sam may have been in our consciousness as we were discussing. But the funny thing is, like, you're not unique in that sense. Like, you're at such a normal kind of your story as a older 35 plus former some sort of athlete, most likely endurance person who enjoys suffering, knows what it feels like to be in that threshold anaerobic kind of maximal heart rate zone, and actually almost emotionally prefers that than the lower zone 1, zone 2 kind of bodybuilding methodology. You are like, that's the majority of sort of masters athletes, I think, in the CrossFit space these days. And so the desire to build strength as like sort of your primary weakness, and then also the desire to build high-end gymnastics, the two things that you have to improve are probably the two things that you like to do the least and don't see like sort of cognitively or kind of feel instinctively and then convince yourself cognitively are not going to get you the most bang for your buck. And so what I mean, the two things being slow, boring, sort of like programmed hypertrophy training, and then mobility and like really, really slow, lower end, like gymnastics positioning work, floor work, shoulder work, right? Like holds, plank holds, feet elevated, walking movements, crab walks, crab holds, crab position holds, like all of that stuff, just like sitting on a set of ring, right? Like for like 3 sets of accumulate a minute and a half.
Yeah, actually, I did that. There was accessory work like 2 Saturdays ago that was like
Pamela Gagnon stuff.
Yeah, it was a Pamela Gagnon. It was like 30-second hold on the ring, 30 on, 30 off, holds on the ring. Or no, it was
knee raises.
No, the first one was just a static like ring hold, and then it was lockout dip position, and then it was Russian push-ups. And I tried to do one of those, and that was just not happening. So I
Right.
just did
And you're
normal
like, what the
push-ups.
fuck? Like, and you watch her do it.
They look
And it's just,
effortless.
yeah, you're just
Ridiculous.
like, oh, I can do that. And you go to do it and you're like, what the like, so like, and the thing is, doing it kind of on your own, realizing like, oh, I've got to go all the way back to like the most like a level, like equivalence of like a not even like a level 4 scale, but like no level scale. like what would this be for somebody who didn't have any arms type of scale? And then to just like ease into it, because it's not a strength question or issue, it's a neurological question and issue. And then same with the weightlifting and strength component. Like the fact is, you are probably strong enough to be able to do like skeletal muscular wise, and definitely cardiovascular wise. Like you have enough ability to intake oxygen, process it, exhale carbon dioxide, and your bones and muscles, the big muscles themselves, are probably strong enough for you to do a 225 pound. Nice.
Why are you chatting?
Oh, it's our boy.
Yeah.
Doug.
Yep.
It's Doug. Yeah, and I mean, and he's a big dude. Like that's not like some little tiny gymnastics guy knocking that out. Like, yeah, but he's still. You see him bend. You see him.
Yeah, he bent the knees.
Back.
He was.
I mean, not just bent the knees, but he broke number 3. He did the first one was decent. Second one was broke onto his knees, and then he bent. He actually broke in his low back on the third one. So that was an okay one. A little bit of a loss in the lumbar. Here he kind of resets. Definitely kind of arced up through his back, and then on here kind of resets, and then big break in his low back on that one. I mean, big in the sense of, but still, I mean, that's a hell. I'm not sure I could do those. But what I'm saying is, rewiring your neurological pathways. You can do a 225 pound thruster. You could clean a 225 pound. You could get it overhead. Like you, if you were able to short circuit your brain and get it out of the way, you have the muscle fibers and your bones would support it and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So with strength at this point, it might be less of a actually like building strength and rewiring or developing the neurological pathways to tell those muscles to fire in a fast, explosive way and at end range of motions and then through the range of motion. And so like doing the gymnastic stuff as accessory work, but then if you were to do the accessory work with that, like the either the Bergner or the bodybuilding, doing it at weights that feel for like 2, 3, 6 weeks, like the first half of this Hulk out cycle, which they're starting this week for 12 weeks. The first like 4 weeks of that, doing it at loading that feels like, Jesus Christ, my kids could do this weight, and doing it perfectly. And then putting like the RPE, but like at 60% of their prescribed RPE. And then the last 4 weeks actually trying to hit the relative perceived effort to be like, oh, okay. And then like doing that whole 12-week cycle again at like, okay, take it way back, redial in the movement pattern, redial the movement pattern in with like 60, 70% of prescribed intensity, then actually do it at that's just why I love relative perceived effort, at the relative intensity level that it's prescribing.
Yeah.
At that point, that's 6 months of like deliberate work. Now you're like, oh, okay, let's see if I can hit some of their prescribed loadings at speed, or when coupled with a couple metcons at intensity a week or whatever. And that's where when people say like strength and gymnastics take really, really long, because it's not your muscle fibers
for just a little bit too, right?
Because
little bit of improvement.
You're building muscle fiber. Yes, you're building joint strength. Yes, you're building positioning, blah, blah, blah. But it's neurological. You're rewiring the brain to tell the skeletal muscle to do what you're wanting it to do. That's what actually takes so long.
Yeah, I was telling yesterday morning ended with like bar muscle ups. And I was just doing like get as deep in the bar as I could. I was telling Eric, I feel like I'm close, but I don't have the timing of like getting the hips over the bar. Like I'm not quite deep enough. It's like, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Like 1 inch can make all the. I feel like I'm an inch away from like consistently being able to hit a bar muscle up, but I'll feel like I'll be like that, and I'll be there for like the next 2 to 3 months.
Even your ring muscle up, another inch on your ring muscle up. Like,
yeah,
there's no question that's a ring muscle up. Like that's how close you were. Like right before the open when you were working on them. That's how close you were.
I was really hoping I was just going to miraculously hit one in week 1. This was like 2 weeks before week 1 we were working on them, and I was like so close.
So you picked the athlete track on Mayhem. Not that like we're sponsored by StreamYard and Mayhem Athlete. You have the athlete track.
Well, if you do the athlete, you get like all of them.
Well, I'm trying to remember which ones you get. So you get with athlete, you get Mayhem 60, bodybuilding, Bergner, okay,
yeah, gymnastics,
and then the everyday hero. Oh, you do. So okay. So I couldn't remember if athlete gets you the masters and the compete. Do you get like the compete and all of those? Wow.
Yep. Yeah, I did the thing with all the tracks.
Yeah,
I got you. So that's compete. That's Mayhem compete. Okay. Mayhem athletes like the next two down, which I'll tell you, like for 99.9%, and I did the athlete for like 6 months, and it was more than enough. But what I was, me personally, as like an athlete, what I was running into was I was still having to kind of like pick and choose which ones I was going to mash and kind of combine together to kind of get what I wanted, which is fine. At $15 a month, like, are you kidding me? It's amazing what you're getting. But I wanted the Masters track, and I wanted to see what the Masters sort of scaling and programming looked like that was different than sort of the younger open athlete track. And it is different. There's definitely scaling. I don't have to think about it.
Rich was doing.
What's up?
You want to see what Rich was doing,
which is actually a track.
It's
a track as well.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, it was sort of that, like, I just don't want to think. I don't want to. I want to follow somebody else's, and so it's, again, for the price point, it's pretty awesome. You don't have a coach. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have somebody you can ask questions and stuff, but unless, which I don't even know, but still, like, it's,
and like for me, I've got enough at home that I can do like some weightlifting movements, and like I don't have room to do any muscle up work, but I've got rings so I can practice like different movements that aren't quite the muscle up. But yeah, having the gym is like where I can actually go truly test everything out. Home is more for like practice.
So training. what's your periodicity? Somebody who's been an athlete for a while, what's your periodicity of for yourself you need some sort of diagnostic to tell you this is working, this isn't working?
So that's actually one of the things I've been trying to figure out through CrossFit, because I had it nailed for triathlon. So I did triathlon training for 5 years. There's so much literature out there about like triathlon training. I found that there's a lot of like conversations in the CrossFit space, but there's no like seminal book on like, here's how you train to be like a competitive CrossFit athlete. So the typical volume for triathlon was like on a month-long cadence. So week 2 builds on week 1, you add like 15% volume. Week 3 builds on week 2, and then you take like a deload week, and then you go right back in. You build up like sequentially over the course. For the Ironman, it was over the course of 9 months. And it was very specific. Like people, because it's only 3 movements, people have planned everything out specifically.
Yeah.
That I haven't been able to figure out. I've been trying different things in CrossFit. So it's mostly like every month or 2 check in. Eric and I have been talking a little bit more. It'd be like nice to compete a little bit more often, because that's the one thing now that like, if you're only competing once a year, then you're not getting that same stimulus of like, it would be nice to have like every quarter have some element of competition, because if it's just every year, like it's definitely different. Like you approach everything differently when you're truly competing as part of a workout,
Yeah.
and even just practicing that. Like if I test on Friday and then I retest the same workout on Monday, I've improved every time all years when I've done that. So it's like the element
Get
of
fitter in 3 days.
yes, I get that much fitter. Like that Saturday workout just boosts my Monday score so much.
Right, exactly. So what you're suggesting or implicitly saying is your fitness did not physically improve, it was an emotional improvement, behavioral, habitual, that
Yeah,
there's a
it's like I trust myself more. For me, I don't go like straight up red line all that because I'm conditioned as like an endurance athlete, like never push yourself to the edge because you're gonna collapse and fail. So that first test on like the Friday is always like, okay, I pushed myself, but then I ended, I'm like, I could have pushed myself harder. Now that I'm more comfortable with the movements and the sequence and the timing, I'm like, all right, I know where my limits are, where I can push far enough where I don't like collapse if it's an AMRAP towards the end of the workout, or if it's like 3 rounds for time. Round 3 isn't like 2x round 2. So now I know gauge my like power output over the course of the workout pretty accurately. And that's why I think ultimately I end up improving anytime I redo a workout.
Okay. So right, that's a really good point of so you've kind of you offered sort of two perspectives. There's one from like sort of the analytical, like what you described totally makes sense. Somewhere between that 4 to 6-ish, 6 to 8, 8 being at like the far end. If we're talking quarterly, you're talking like 12 every 12 weeks, but optimally in that 6 to 8 week mark, having some sort of testing diagnostic, both holistically, like am I like unknown and unknowable, but then also like individually, like I've been working specifically on my strength. I'm going to 1 rep max test or 3 rep max test or something. So cyclic, macro-ish, or meso-ish cycle sort of periodicity. But then what about like I mean, for you personally, like qualitatively, that totally makes sense quantitatively to me. And I agree. Like we're talking about a sport. You kind of have to have some diagnostics to know, where I'm at, where you're at. What about you emotionally? Like, how does that work? Where does that work for you? You know what I mean? Like what does that look like if in that diagnostic you're not improving? Like how, I guess that's sort of my question of like, how do you, if we were talking to you specifically that episode 3 or 4 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was.
Yeah. So like if I spent 3 months in level 2 and then we test and I didn't get better,
right?
Where would I be emotionally?
Yeah, that's sort of because I'm painting a picture. It's coming. Like there, you are not going to see results, and maybe not even see like results until the next open. And maybe those results, because of the nature of CrossFit, and I think there might be something there of why there isn't any literature on this, is because the nature of CrossFit is what we're describing is completely antithetical to the concept of why the methodology was created. It was created to not have macro, meso, and micro cycles, hypertrophy, periodicity. These are all, in the words of Glassman, voodoo magic. They're bullshit. It's just really good guessing, because you have no idea what's going to come around the corner. So it was designed for GPP, general physical preparedness, which innately, at most, it's a 9-day cycle. Like that's from a programming template. Like you look 9 days out, and as long as you're having broad coverage across your 9 days, you're hitting it, and there is no trajectory. There is no cyclic sense to it. Right. So where you see the improvements are on a much bigger and much broader spectrum than most of us are willing to accept. And so that's sort of what I'm asking you is how do you trick yourself into accepting or sort of finding that sort of weird, nebulous, individualized blending of kind of those two worlds?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I trained triathlon It was 5 years of training before I ever did an Ironman.
Oh, all right.
So
So
like
you have
I
some
was,
you have some emotional endurance in there.
yeah.
That's commitment, man.
Wow.
5 years.
Yeah. So like I didn't go into it and like, oh, year one, I'm gonna go out and race an
All
Ironman.
right.
I started with the sprints and I worked in one Olympic in the first season. Then the next season was all about Olympic distance. And one of the things I realized through that whole process, like I just like learning more about my body too.
Yeah.
For me, it's part about learning, part about challenging myself. Like, hey, if I don't qualify for the top 10, like the quarterfinals next in 2024, like I'm not going to be like emotionally destroyed and never come back to CrossFit. I'll be like more disappointed than I was the previous year. But at the end of the day, it's just like, it's just a personal goal. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't define who I am as a person. Like, it just, I like to compete and I like to have something to shoot for.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I noticed, dude, like my fastest half Ironman was when I was training for the full distance. My fastest Olympic race was when I was training for the half. So I learned through my body, like I respond really well to volume,
Okay.
which is why like doing something like level 2, like I trust in the cumulative reps over time that's eventually going to make an improvement. I don't need to see the
Yeah.
immediate return on results.
That's a really interesting data point too for you. So if I'm right, if I'm designing, then it is infinitely more important for you as an athlete who has seen that type of improvement in a modality, to truly never get like more than 1 or 2 90% days in a week. Like
Yeah.
you really should be training at that like 60, 65, 70% place and prioritizing reps and volume
Yeah.
and like so if the stimulus says we want somewhere between 8 to 12 rounds, you need to be in that 11 to 12 range on that AMRAP. If the stimulus says should be in that 15 to 18-minute range, you should definitely be scaling it so that you're hitting that 15,
Faster.
maybe even faster than 15-minute range, right? So like those sorts of things where intensity isn't going to be your ticket to improvement, but uh, rep um, volume stimulus
Yeah.
and and then just quality reps, and
Yeah.
then that's what's going to get you even in the strength component. So like it was front squats yesterday, I think, if you're following the Bergner strength stuff.
Yeah, we did overhead squats. We did power snatches and overhead squats.
Gotcha.
Oh, but yeah, Bergner strength. Yeah, Bergner strength.
The it was tempo, and so the guidance was the slower you can go, the better. Right? It's 3 seconds down, 3 seconds in the hole, fire up. And so the idea being, if you could go 5 seconds down, 5 seconds in the hole, fire up. Well, yeah, but I can't go heavier than like 15 pounds on the bar, like that, and maybe even just the bar. At this point in like the training cycle, it would be like, yes, exactly. Like hit the described stimulus to wire sort of those positions and neural pathways for you would be always prioritize, hit every rep, hit every set, hit them really, really well. And then I like the way you describe that. When you feel yourself being able to do that and not fatigued, or at least emotionally, physically, like, oh my God, I can't dangle from the bar type of fatigue. Oh, all right. Now it's time to phase it up or
Yeah, I think the biggest like the place where I have to press like the add bleed button is on like the weightlifting stuff. Because a lot of the other stuff at this point has become like cardiovascular for me or like muscular endurance, like except for handstand push-ups and the bar muscle up, but like everything else is about muscle endurance. So it's about finding that like right rep scheme to continue to build the endurance. Like I'll trust that it'll be there.
yeah.
For me, it's like what if I was like 3 months from now or 6 months from now and didn't gain anything strength wise, I'd be like, okay, I guess it's going to be another year of not qualifying.
Yeah.
So like that's the biggest area.
Mike Bergner tells a story of like with his even like so when he would mainly coach high school students or high school athletes, but even in his garage gym, like if he had a guy or a woman show up and they were in their 30s, for the first 6 months of training, they weren't allowed to touch anything but a PVC pipe.
Yeah.
And this is
I've
somebody
seen
like,
those videos on YouTube.
yeah, you'd have somebody show up and he'd be like, yeah, he was, this woman was able to snatch like 145 pounds. Like, she's amazing, but she had a goal of wanting to go to Worlds. And so he's like, no, you're done. Like, you've capped out at 145 pounds. That's okay. But where you want to go, you need to be in the 190s, 180s, whatever. And so he'd make them for 6 months only touch a PVC. Then maybe they'd get a 15-pound bar for like the next 6 months or 3 months or whatever. Then he would start giving them actual barbells and loading and stuff for only like the last 4 to 6 weeks of their training.
Yeah.
And it was that idea of exactly like, it's not a strength limitation. It's a movement pattern, neurological limitation. And I'm with, that is the hardest thing for me as an athlete to swallow. Like,
Yeah, that part, like, it makes sense to me on the Olympic lifts. I still fear on like just a simple squat. I'm like, how is that like a neurological thing versus just doing more, building the strength?
Right. Well, because you forget like that's still 90% neurological as far as like which muscles, which positions you're gonna want to fire in. Like, yeah. So,
you hit a certain weight. The neurological part is shot, and it's not going to move the way you need it to move to get that weight moving.
Yeah.
And so it's like, training those positions under fatigue are huge, even under light loads. That's why you see this 9-week liftoff cycle with Mayhem 2. That's why you see we hit the heavies, and we've now these last.
I like what we're doing right now. The 3x3s, those are good.
60 to 70% at the most. Like, that sub-maximal loading, making sure, because you're like, I'm thinking about your power snatch yesterday, how it actually looked like a power snatch and not like a kind of like a power snatch press out. Like, you were snapping through, locking out when you're like, it was a really smooth looking power snatch, not a flip press kind of land in a squat. Like, and that's the stuff that when we get back to that heavy snatch again, having that stuff clicking is going to make.
Right. Cause Eric, I mean, what do they say? What's a squat snatch?
It's a failed power snatch.
There you go. Right. So if you can power snatch it correctly, fuck, you just got to drop under it now.
Yeah.
You can get 15, 20, 30 more pounds.
Yeah. It was you were getting through quick. I was like, "Ooh, okay."
Yeah.
That one I was really focused on like the full extension.
Yeah.
Ooh,
and then quick.
That's the same for tall folks that they want to pull early because it just feels like this bar has been coming up forever. It's time to go down. I mean, you're like your bar is like you at full extension before you even start bending the elbows is higher than Kate when she's full snatch. So you got to wait till you're above Kate before you can even start pulling down.
So you got who's your partner in crime? Like, you got like that's always the third
training partner.
Yeah, like who's, you know what I mean? Because that's always what makes it.
Yeah, it's been like Luis, Joan, and Sam. Kind of at different times. Like, Luis is coming back from the shoulder plasma thing. Joan and I compete pretty frequently. I feel like we have different weaknesses. From that, it's like I feel like she's pretty good at the gymnastic stuff. She's still working on the muscle up. So that, like, we do a lot of comparing notes of like, hey, where are you going to do this workout? What are you going to do that workout? And then Sam, I know, did a bunch of strength stuff heading into last open. I feel like he's rebooting a little bit, but that kind of for the four of us, at least, of like in passing exchange notes, like the intention around qualifying and getting in that top 10%.
Do you feel as if there's shared buy-in in kind of the rekindled approach of like less is more?
I think so. I don't think we've had enough like conversation around that.
Oh, 2 more squats.
Always more squats.
Hey,
I remember like the first year.
Watcher.
And he's on point.
The first year, I was like, Jack, how do I get better box jumps? He's like, do more box jumps. How do I get better burpees? Do more burpees. He's like, okay, fine.
Who said I said that?
You, yeah. When it is to come to like, my box jump cycle time isn't fast enough. He's like, do more.
How do you get better thrusters?
Do more.
2 more thrusters.
Yeah, it'd be good to create like a group of, but I don't know. I like the culture of the gym so much. Like, I wouldn't want to create division of like, oh, okay, here's a group of people that are trying to make that top 10% versus like a group of people that are there for GPP purposes. So that's why I've been hesitant to like try to gather, but I do think people are generally bought in. I don't see as much like going to the extent and killing yourself every week, every day.
Well, that's why I want to tickle that itch too, of like tickle that itch, scratch that itch, of having this time of year that like local competitions and stuff start popping up, and so it's a good way to kind of like scratch that itch as like kind of setting that benchmark. And then when you get back to the gym, like it's about training, it's not about the competition, and you can still. But yeah, I think the culture itself like totally allows for that. Like you have that group that you compare notes with, but everyone's at the end of the day is there for the same goal. Let's just have this. Everyone's goals are just a little bit different.
Yeah.
And, but having that, you want to be better competitively. Well, a good way to test that, like you said, is maybe do the occasional competition just to get outside of that comfort zone of the box.
Yeah, we also like Roger's been in the conversation too, but we've talked about like, oh, let's pick one workout every week or every month where we like actually all decide we compete for that workout versus like following your own individualized, like, hey, we're all working on slightly different things. So I think any given day of the week, someone might be like pushing it harder or taking it easier. Like everyone has their own like personal life schedule, but what we were talking about.
Waiting for the one with the 2-mile run buy-in. I want to do that one.
That's one we'll compete on. That'd be perfect.
Awesome, dude. That's good, man. It's fun. It's fun to hear like kind of digging into like that side. It's cool hearing how you take that triathlon training, that marathon training, and those different kind of ways to look at it. But yeah, I feel like that's one of those that never ending with, like Jack was saying with CrossFit, like there's not really, it's hard to find that end goal. And that probably drives you.
Yeah, it's that's been what I've been struggling with the longest. Jack, the first training for the first open, I don't know if you remember, but I was like, hey, do people like taper for the open? I remember like I was in a class with Kelly and Slam, and Kelly was like laughing. She's like, "You're not going to make the games." It's like, no, I'm not trying to make the game.
That's Kelly, a straight shooter.
Time, like I still want to perform my best. So trying to figure out the correlation between like what I've done in my past life to like how do I apply that previous knowledge to CrossFit is something I'm still working towards.
You're a good pacer.
Yes.
Anyone that does like marathons and triathlons know how to pace the bejesus out of it, especially the longer ones like metronomes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 20 to 30-minute workouts. Those are my jam.
Yeah, all day.
We need more of those. Can we have more of those?
All day, son. Cool.
You would have liked the quarterfinal one with the shuttle runs and the rope climbs and the bench press.
Yeah.
Most average folks were in that 19 to sort of 22 minute range. The top folks were in like 12 to 15. Shitheads. Yeah, I think it's mostly that's a bench press. The 25.
Yeah, it was 185 pounds, right?
Yeah, 185 pounds. I got injured, so I didn't have to do it.
I heard. How's it feeling?
It's all right. It's the same old thing. It's a great excuse. I can't really go heavy on that right side yet. And I'm not, I might be another 2 or 3 weeks. Like basically I don't want to feel anything before I go any sort of loading. So I purposefully have to be doing like a lot of banded stuff, position work, holds, super, super light things and stuff. And so it's like, and we just started this new cycle Monday that, all right, so I have to go really, really light for the next 3 to 4, 5, 6 weeks. It's awesome. Doing a lot of shoulder, upper body pressing, pulling stuff. So, oh darn, right? Like I've been having to work on all that stuff anyway. I just don't because it's unsatisfyingly. Yeah, it's exactly. And so
stuff you need to be doing is boring.
Yeah, I did flipping dumbbell skull crushers and supine or prone short range double dumbbell bench rows.
Yeah, but you get a nice pump.
Yeah, dude. Like it's like God, I hate this shit.
Are you doing the bodybuilding?
I'm just following I just follow the masters
Oh, it's all part of the master.
Yeah, they roll it in. So it's the compete track.
Oh yeah, that's right. They said that like for this cycle they roll bodybuilding stuff in
12 weeks. Yeah, it'd be a 12-week. But I mean, there was a power snatch with a 2 to 3 second hold at the landing,
Oh.
wave, and then some bodybuilding stuff and some barbell stuff, and right. And so then it ended with the. Did you guys do the Bruce Banner Metcon, or is that?
Yeah, that was Dr. Bruce Banner. That's today.
Okay.
Yeah, lunges, double unders, and
right. So I modified it a little bit with like a bike, Echo bike and sled push, and then the GHDs. So like I know, because I got to do some stuff. Exactly, accessory work, as Andy says. Yeah. We all love it, need it, want it, but when it
that's the thing. The monotony of training for a triathlon, I feel like has prepared me well for like this is going to be boring, but it's going to be effective.
Yeah. And so I know for me, so that's good. That's a good self-awareness around. I know that if I can hit 80 to 90% compliance, then I will see benefits and improvement. So I just got to figure out the trick to get me to that 80 to 90% compliance. And for me, it's supersetting stuff. If I can superset it and put some bullshit clock on it, even if the like it's still within the same time domain that like somebody who's not doing it on a clock would do, but just hearing the beep, beep, beep of like a 3-minute EMOM or a 4-minute EMOM gives me that feeling of like, okay, this isn't 1990s high school bullshit in the gym Nautilus stuff, because that's what it feels like if I just leave it to do it as it's like written. And so those are exactly like the little tricks. So whatever you've learned for yourself, little tricks to hit that compliance, hey man, use them.
Cool. All right, hey, let's land this baby. Don't land babies. All right, Ed.
Don't land on the baby.
What? Don't land on the baby. All right, you know the routine. Gratitudes to close it out.
Oh, I got to go first.
Yeah, I think that's a new rule that I just made up. Is the guest goes first.
All right. I'll say you guys. So I started listening to this podcast right after my daughter was born in 2019. Probably I may have listened to everyone since, but what convinced me to join Fairwinds was just listening to you guys, like how you approach the methodology of CrossFit. And then you delivered for 2.5 years now. I know Jack isn't part of the group anymore, but it's great to bring the podcast back and be able to hear you 1 hour a day. But it's been a fun journey, and I think it helps keep the ego in check when Eric brings all that fun lightheartedness and the culture you built around Fairwinds. It's been good for me.
And also, Ed was saying the other day he misses the nerding out on the creek.
I do miss nerding out on the creek.
Yeah. So they're still in the archives. They're there. But yeah, those were cool.
Take a different form. Maybe I'll actually I don't know. My nerd activities are less physical and more literate, or right now politics, political writings.
Maybe you can do a summer school nerding on the creek.
Yeah, my cousin went to the St. John's in New Mexico.
Oh, cool. Graduate institute or undergrad?
Graduate.
I was about to say, actually, it's only a graduate out there. Yeah.
He went to Williams for undergraduate, and then he went there for graduate. And seems like intense. I don't know if that's my style of learning. Just a lot of we will learn about math. We read about math.
Yeah, Euclid. You want to learn how math works? Just read Euclid.
If you can pull this, I know Jack. I think you can pull this quote. But I had a friend who went to the St. John's in New Mexico, and studied Sanskrit. Like, not even kidding. Do you remember? Not even a joke. Like, did you ever see PCU, Ed?
No.
Okay, that's a movie you have to go watch. I'm not going to go down that hole, but yeah, PCU is a movie like old, like young Jeremy Piven
and Jon Favreau.
And Jon Favreau, yeah,
heavy, fat, young Jon Favreau,
and high.
Yeah,
probably
high.
Can
you blow me where the Pampers is?
Yes. But yeah, majored in Sanskrit. I can never hear that be like Sanskrit. Some 1,000-year-old dead language.
Maybe that's my next temporarily retired activity.
Tonight, everybody gets laid.
But I think it was for coding. He wanted to go that like Sanskrit, something that tied into coding. He wanted to get into coding. I don't know the tie-in to a dead language, to a very advanced technological language. But
what's funny? Well, that was actually my my gratitude. We had a nerd field trip on Saturday. We went to it's the once a semester they try and do like the whole graduate institute body kind of goes and does something. So we went into DC, did like some museums, then a dinner at Carmine's, and then a show, which was absolutely horrible. The show was absolutely horrible. A play felt like high school theater drama, which I feel bad. Like these are professionals, and I'm sure the acting was fine. I don't know. It just wasn't mine. None of us really enjoyed it. But we were talking about sort of the like what it is, the value or what the worth of this St. John's education is. Because so often, like the variety of people that are in the program, some are mid-career professionals, some are sort of in their late 20s, early 30s, some are in their 40s and 50s. There's a guy in my class in his late mid 70s. But like across the board, the general consensus is the idea of reading stuff that is the antithesis of contemporary, that it is so out of our general consciousness that it purposely makes you stop and think of, well, geez, how am I interpreting this? And am I interpreting it or understanding it with some sort of contemporary bias? Can I get out of my own contemporary bias and understand it on its own terms? That habit and kind of building that practice of recognizing like, oh, geez, I'm thinking of this thing from my own head. How would I try to think about this from somebody else's perspective? Seems to me a very useful practice, regardless of whatever job, discipline, whatever you decide to do next in life. Like it just seems like a beneficial thing to do. And the St. John's curriculum not forces, but it offers you that opportunity to do it all the time with everything in every capacity. And so like you go and experience, we were having a conversation about what entrees to get at Carmine's, and I was cracking up laughing because it was watching people decide what to order. 8 people around the table decide what to order in a St. John style. And it was like arguments were being made for spaghetti, fettuccine, angel hair, penne, rigatoni, and like what were the benefits and why different sauces would be better for other ones. But like not just opinions, but people like pulling up the menu and saying, well, look how it's laid out. Like there's a structural design here of like suggesting which is what we blah, blah, blah. And so it was cracking me up. And I was very grateful for an experience that was solely nerd for the sake of being nerds, for the sake of like just leaning into it. So yeah, that's my gratitude.
Oh. I'm gonna have 2. Mine's real quick. First one, real quick, is hey, thank you, Andy Hunt, for being the first commenter ever on the live. I think it's
wasn't Ariel.
Oh, that's true. Ariel was on. Yeah, I kind of forced her though. I was like, Ariel, get on YouTube. So first non-forced. Yeah, mine is it was just fun watching the kids do a little Easter egg hunt the other day and how just happy they were, like roaming the backyard. Like, well, if we put 40 eggs out there, Fee found 39 of them. Everett found like the first one, and it was just like content with the one. But just how like being out in the yard, snatching eggs that had like little toys in them. We didn't even do candy, toy and like spare change. And then they have a little mud kitchen set up. So it was basically like a play kitchen, but they fill pots and pans with mud, and they just play with it. And they were just happy as clams out there. And it's like, yeah, you like that reminder, like you don't need much to not just keep them happy. It's also like these simple things, just kind of reminders. Like you don't need much to like find happiness and joy, and it's just a good little reminder to sit and watch them sometimes. So that's it. My kiddos,
nice, man.
All 2.5 of them. He's 3. He's a full 3. He's a kid.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, how did that happen? I feel like
he's a big boy. He's a full 3. If anything, I have 3.5 because
he takes up.
Everett are so big. My gosh. So anyway, awesome. Well, yeah, thanks so much, Ed. I appreciate you being on, dude. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks. It was a great therapy session. I highly recommend it to
there you go. Yeah, nice.
I'll tell you what, Jack, this might need to be like the platform.
Yeah.
So,
I love it, dudes. Good catching up, man.
Same. It's good to
Cool.
see you guys.
All right,
Awesome.
brother.
All right, dudes. We're out.